gangsters, 'cause we speak bold, ain't tripping on the haters. It could take freedom from a cold dead hands, we're locked and loaded for the last dance. 'Cause we're the new American gangsters, ready to die for this man.
Good evening. I'll welcome everybody back to our, We the People USA Alliance podcast. And in a 2-week hiatus, welcome Shelby back. Welcome back to the state of Arizona, everybody. And how you been doing?
Good. Got to get
Yeah.
out and see God's country.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
always nice.
Yeah,
We saw a place in Colorado called Bishop's Castle.
yeah.
It's an interesting place.
It's fascinating. I sort of grew up in Colorado with the construction of Bishop's Castle. And it's really interesting how first the father actually began Bishop's Castle. The construction then was continued by the father's son after father's death. And it's a really interesting sort of dynamic on um, government intervention in our day-to-day lives, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, they arrested him
Hmm.
and charged him with like 4 or 5 felony counts. He was
Right.
vindicated on all 5 charges, but it was the government saying you can't burn stuff, you can't
Right.
build your own homestead, right? And we're
Right.
still fighting that homestead battle to this
Right.
day, right?
Right. And so, I mean, it just shows, though, that government has really sought to intervene and control everything in our lives. From the collection and retention of rainwater
Mhm.
to building your own dream, I suppose, castle, because that's what Bishop's Castle is.
Right.
It's an actual castle that you can go visit. He gives free admission still, right?
Absolutely. Doesn't
Yeah.
charge for anything. You can have weddings there and venues
Right.
and all kinds of stuff. They don't charge
Right.
for anything at all.
And it's really cool. So if anybody ever gets a chance, you oughta, in your southwestern Colorado, you oughta stop by Bishop's Castle. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A pretty cool place. You climb all over it and, make a donation as well, because, he's done this. He and his dad did this all out of their own pocketbook, with their own labor, with their own tools,
Yeah.
And so it's been an absolute labor of love.
Yeah, it's quite a fascinating, and if you're
Mhm.
afraid of heights, possibly terrifying
Right.
experience, because it's very,
Yeah.
very high and you can climb up all into the castle.
Yeah.
So,
You know,
um,
it's funny though, because in contrast to that, I saw some article on Facebook or some other social media platform. It was just praising Woody Harrelson for building his $10 million completely renewable mansion. Right? It's got solar and he collects his own rainwater and all this stuff. And it's like, well, if everybody had $10 million to build their own mansion, everybody could do the same thing. What's so special about Woody Harrelson?
right.
Some rich dude, being able to build an estate that none of us would be able to build.
Right. But it's
Right.
kind of inspiring to see
Yeah.
these homesteaders
Uh-huh.
build an entire castle out of nothing but remnant and
Right.
stuff from the land. I mean, it's
Right.
very, very cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
um,
much cooler than, Woody Harrelson being able to pay a bunch of contractors to do it on their behalf.
right. He didn't
Yeah.
use his hands to build it, did he?
No, he didn't. He didn't even use his brain.
So today we're gonna talk a little bit about government and how it intervenes in our lives and some of the things around elections. Right. We have
Uh-huh.
a very special guest today,
Right.
and we're gonna talk about that. But
Uh-huh.
before we do go into that, what do you think about Trump's appointment of Kurt Olson?
I think it's a fabulous thing. And, if Kurt wants to talk, we can give some pointers on where to look.
Absolutely.
And so, we're always open to that. And so we've got, the appointment of Kurt Olson that follows, of course, the appointment of Heather Honey into the Department of Homeland Security, CISA, and Election Integrity Unit.
Right.
They're going out of their way to completely publicly try to destroy both Heather and Kurt. And so we need to fight back.
Absolutely. It's nice to see a few of our own people that we worked very closely with getting in there, people that we can trust. And if they don't know what's going on, they at least know the right people to ask, right? And that's a big part of it.
And I'm going to suggest that all of you conservative writers out there, all of you conservatives in the media space that are generating articles about conservative issues, that you focus on generating articles about Heather Honey and about Kurt Olson's appointment and the work they've done in the election integrity space. It's very, very important, because when you look at what AI is doing, and the left knows this, right? The blue sky people know this, that Grok, is it Grok that's on Twitter?
Yes.
That Grok will take all of these articles and come up with a truth, right?
Yes.
And so if all of the liberals from Blue Sky are publishing articles, that are just decimating Heather Honey and Kurt Olson and the election integrity movement, then Grok is going to come up with this truth, right? That says, bad things about Heather Honey and Kurt Olson and the election integrity movement, right? And so push out articles, right? Get your articles out there that tell people the truth, so that when AI starts to analyze all of this data and sort of compile it, which is what it does, that it shares more of a real world view of what's taking place.
Well, and I think that's a good segue into our guest.
Yeah.
Something we're going to talk about today is the arrest of Colonel Conrad Reynolds, and him and our guest today, our special guest today, Will Huff. We had the pleasure of getting to know them quite a while back during their recall efforts in Wisconsin. And then also they came out with AVII, and they did the filming and the support for our hand count that we have been promoting all across the country. So if we can, Steve, let's go ahead and bring in Will Huff. He is a longtime associate of Colonel Conrad Reynolds, and he is an expert on election policy, and also somebody that, I really admire, somebody that I've been able to work closely with for his staunch advocacy, along with Colonel Reynolds, for removing the equipment, the election equipment out of our elections, putting the people back in place, hand count paper ballots. So welcome very much. Thanks for being here, Will.
Thanks, Shelby, Steve.
Thanks.
Appreciate you guys. You're right about how we need to do elections, though. We're fighting to make elections Amish again. Really is what we need. And and what we know from DC, Colonel Reynolds and I have been working in DC with a lot of the people we know as mutuals, and also we're so happy to have Heather and Kurt in these positions, because they believe what the president's also striving to do, and that's have hand-marked, hand-counted, citizen-led hand counts of paper ballots. But they're looking to go even further. That's the removal of the electronic poll books. So you can't activate, deactivate, create new voters, put them on and let them vote, and then they disappear and they're ghosts and never seen again. So we're going to unplug the entire system, I think, and I'm glad we have advocates there who all are thinking alike. And the process is get back to the small precincts. When you have the small precincts, you can hand count as soon as the night's over, and you're not having millions of ballots in Maricopa County going into one central location where they commingle with what came through the mail, what came in on the elections. You don't want the commingling. You want them in small batches, just like the hand count method you guys have in Maricopa County there. Do them in the small batches, get them counted, get them recorded, then promote the results.
Absolutely. Before we get into what's going on with Colonel Reynolds, it's interesting that you said that, because No Ink, the founder of No Ink, actually bought Dominion, and these are the e-poll books that you're referring to. And we won't get deep into that yet. We want to talk about Colonel Reynolds first, but we're going to talk about that later in the show, and kind of the dangers and the false security around those type of things. But I do want to add, you forgot something there, Will. I really do want to get rid of mail-in ballots.
Oh, mail in for Arizona. For Arizona, you guys have 30 days of millions of ballots just floating around out in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, I mean, if we went down the full list of what the White House is most likely going to be calling for, it is first the ballots are, or you come in with an ID and you've already proven your citizenship at some point. So you have the ID. Then you come in and you hand mark it in person. So you are in person at a voting place marking your ballots. Almost no early voting, if any at all, because the longer the early voting goes, the more difficult it is to keep chain of custody, to keep track of the ballots, and to stop people from kind of having an idea of where the election's going and working in a certain way to manipulate it. If you get rid of long early voting, especially early voting like in Arizona, where I think they run through the machines and you can get a running tally as it's going, even though the machines might not know it or I don't remember if you guys do it there like that or not. In Arkansas, early voting, they go through the tabulator during early voting. So if anyone has access to the electronic and the tabulator, they know what the current count is, even though nobody else does. So they can go in and adjust and see how things can be done. So we don't want that. We need no long early voting periods. Oklahoma does 3 days.
State law in Arizona allows them to start tabulating the ballots. Now, they claim that's not counting. They're just tabulating them. The first mail-in ballot they receive. So they could theoretically start tabulating, I believe it's like 48 days before the election because they start getting the UACAVA ballots even before the 30 days of voting starts.
So to think that nobody's going to access that vital data of who's in the lead right now and how is the election looking, it's very naive to think with that much of a power of knowing that number that nobody's going to look. And
it's exceptionally naive.
Yeah, it's so naive. So that's why you don't want the long early voting, because not only is the chain of custody, you also leave it open for more manipulation of somebody to abuse the power of being able to get into a tabulator, if a tabulator is used, and see where that election is at currently, and then manipulate. It could be you go out and say, you know what, we're down 1 million ballots, and most likely it's going to be Democrat ballots we need. So let's go to areas where it's usually Democrat and go push people to the polls. They can use it like that, or they can say, how many ballots do we need to inject? And then they can find ways to eject if there's a bad actor, which, having worked on the people who wrote this book, Stolen Elections, and going out of country to talk to Venezuelans who created the code that they use in a lot of these machines, I'm going to tell you there are people who want to manipulate the elections, and they will do it. And the flaws that Halderman found in the system, we were told they're not flaws, they're features. They're made to look sloppy, so that way there are vulnerabilities. Like I think they said 18 different ways that they can get it back into the machines.
Well, you know, the paper ballot thing, and I see your hat there. Some people are saying that this is what Colonel Conrad Reynolds is really being targeted for. But help us understand here. Isn't Arkansas a Republican state, Will? Can you tell us what's going on? What is happening in Arkansas?
First, I'm going to start off with people don't understand the situation in Arkansas. Arizona, you guys mark ballots with a pen into a bubble. And in Arkansas, every voter has to use a touchscreen. You have to use a touchscreen machine that then prints out a piece of paper that is a bunch of barcodes that you stick it to a tabulator. That's the Arkansas voting method. So when we're talking about paper ballots, it's to get rid of the touchscreen machines, because studies have shown on a touchscreen machine, you can flip votes in 97% of the people will not notice that their vote has been flipped. So in Arkansas, that's the most vulnerable part of our election system. The second part are the barcodes. So the names might match your choices, but we don't know the barcodes. And we saw in Heather Honey actually had a case up in Pennsylvania where Northampton County, the barcodes did not match the names on the ballot. And they found it out in a weird way where the names weren't matching, that what people were choosing on the screen, it was printing the wrong name, but the barcode would match the choice that they chose on the computer. Then they were telling them choose the wrong name so you get the right barcode. It became a big mess. But again, voters can't read their own vote if it's written in the barcode. So Arkansas, that's our kind of situation in the voting system. We don't have the long mail outs. We don't mass mail out. We have absentees for people who are sick or disabled or the UOCAVA.
So they were literally telling people to vote for the other candidate if
Yes.
they wanted their vote count to the right candidate.
Correct. In
That's
Northampton County,
absolutely-
Pennsylvania. And
Yeah,
people were
that's
like, we're not going to
absolutely
do that.
Absurd.
Oh,
Right.
it makes no sense. No sense. But
Yeah.
that's ES&S machine. That was the I think it was the Express Vote XL, I think is what they were using there.
Mhm.
Don't quote me on that. It was ES&S and it was one version of the Express Vote. And
Yeah.
but yeah, so that happened in 2023, I think, in November 2023. They were voting for judges and they were telling them to vote on the wrong one. So in Arkansas, we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Republican governor. We have Republicans across every statewide position in the state government. All Republicans, supermajority across the board. All four. We only have 4 congressmen. All 4 are Republican. Both senators Republican. So it is a Republican-led legislature here in Arkansas. But we cannot get any of them to fight for the president's agenda on hand-marked paper ballots. They're all fighting seemingly against the movement. They don't want to acknowledge that the president wants hand-marked paper ballots. They won't mention it. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders will make a post about we're number 1 according to the Heritage Foundation. So if you look at the Heritage Foundation, we're number 1 in election security. I don't know if you guys ever pay attention to the Heritage rankings, but do you know who the number 1 was in 2021? Immediately after the 2020 election?
I'm almost afraid
Georgia.
to ask.
Georgia was number 1 in heritage for
Oh.
the election with the most integrity was Georgia.
Arizona?
They're still number 4. Georgia is still number 4.
No,
Wow.
in the heritage
Georgia.
rankings.
Georgia was number 1. Huh.
Yeah.
Where was
After
Arizona?
2020
do you know?
election. I don't know where Arizona is. I do know they have Louisiana's in the top 7, and it's a total touch screen. It's a direct recording device. No paper comes out of that. So these are the things like that the governor hides behind while ignoring the president's call for the paper ballots that are hand marked and counted by the local citizens. And then not only do they not push for the paper ballot agenda, they fight against it with the weight of the government coming down on different people. So local government in Searcy County, Arkansas, voted to go to a hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballot system. They've held 2 elections. Both times, this State Board of Election Commissioners, which is under the Secretary of State, has punished them. They've come down. They've made their life miserable with all kinds of requests, all kinds of pressure, dragging their name through the mud in the fake news, and just really making them look like bad people when they're 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, who were ordered to do hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots by their local government. It wasn't their, like, they don't have a choice. They don't get to say, we're going to do the hand-marked paper ballots. They had to do it. And the state has come after them over and over and over again.
Simply for listening to the will of the people.
Yeah, there's a city government that has a board of, like, I think there's 8 people or 9 people in Searcy County, and they had to vote. As the county government voted to go to hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots. The election commissioners just have to conduct the election. That's their job, is to conduct the election. And they were about to get banned for 14 years, but luckily the citizens showed up to the meeting, and the State Board of Election Commissioners, which is run by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, handpicked Secretary of State. She appointed him. He runs this board. This board was trying to ban the Searcy County Election Commissioners for 14 years. But the room got filled with citizens who came and said, this isn't right. And they backed off and gave them a letter of reprimand only. But do you know what their charge was? Not spending enough money on their transparency in their election. They spent too little. They wanted them to spend more money. And so they got in trouble for not spending enough money on renting cameras and TVs.
Well,
It's
it's interesting.
just ridiculous.
It's a lot like sort of what's happening here in the state of Arizona. We have the leftist attorney general working with States United to prosecute members of boards of supervisors and to threaten others for who are willing to go out and support hand counts during our elections.
Isn't Tom Crosby out of Cochise County? Isn't his trial starting soon? I think the end of this week.
It should be coming up soon. Yeah.
And it's the same thing.
And, you know,
he voted for hand count paper ballot. It's almost like they want to make sure people don't know that it is not only easier, more efficient, but it's cheaper too.
cheaper.
Well, not only
And
that,
if
but
you
it
didn't have-
also it also pulls in a whole host of citizens into the electoral
It did.
process, doesn't it?
That's right. It made a lot more people come participate in the Searcy County election
Right.
system. They did trainings, they volunteered. I think Shelby, even you've talked to Lori Gross, one of the election commissioners from there, that they were trying to punish. And so you've talked to these people. They just want to have good, safe elections. Now in Arizona, you would expect it because that AG position should have been Abe Hamadeh. And
Should have
so
been.
it was stolen. And the governor should have been Carrie Lake. That was stolen. We know that. And so you expect that kind of pressure coming from illegitimate people wanting to protect the
Right.
system. What you
Right.
don't expect is Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her administration arresting Colonel Conrad Reynolds, who in a month from now is going to be inducted to the Arkansas Military Veterans Hall of Fame. Somebody who went 29 years in the military and has a top secret clearance, works with people from the White House on getting elections done the right way. And they came after him with something super petty that no AG's office would have ever taken if the name Conrad Reynolds hadn't been on it. And in general, for those who don't know the case, last week a warrant was announced for Conrad for all the press releases said electioneering. The AG said for exit polling, and he's being charged under electioneering laws. But now the AG is backtracking and say, well, it's nothing about electioneering or exit polling. He's backing off on that, even though the charges are there. So Colonel
Should
Reynolds
we take a look
is
at
allegedly.
that? While you hold on just a second. Steve, can you put up, we actually have the affidavits, the arrest warrants,
Yeah,
because we looked through those and it specifically does cite the act of electioneering in those affidavits, which I found quite interesting.
Did you also know the affidavits doxed Conrad? All of his personal information is on there: his driver's license number, his birth date, his address, and that is illegal for a state agency to release that information in public press releases. So our attorney general is currently breaking the law by having these available online.
Well, you know what part of the problem I've always been concerned about, and I've expressed this concern, is that just because you're a Republican doesn't mean you're going to support changing a system that
No.
supports your continued reelection and your continued power, right?
You need status quo.
Right,
in
and that's
Arkansas-
why my concerns about the Center for or the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency.
Yes,
If they choose to keep it so that they can use it for their own ends, then we're doing nothing different than what the other team was doing, and
That's right.
And that's my
And we have
biggest
to call it out.
concern. Right.
Yeah, we do.
have to call it
You're
out.
exactly
And
right.
it-
We have to call it out either way. And what's happening to Colonel Reynolds and the commissioners there in Arkansas is a stark reminder that this is not a partisan issue. Elections should never be a partisan issue because this isn't about Republicans and Democrats. This is about institutionalists versus the citizens. And it doesn't matter which political aisle they come from, right?
No, and we have a guy running for Secretary of State. His name is Brian Norris. He's actually been endorsed by Senators Wendy Rogers and Mark Fincham. And he has a thing. He says, "Are we being ruled or represented?" And right now, it's like we're being ruled. And Arkansas has an oligarchy, and because we're such a Republican voter base, they know they're never going to lose their seats in a general election. So they're just consolidating power. And power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And these guys seem to have been absolutely corrupted because they're doing everything they can to squash people who speak up against it. They've disbanded county GOP committees, the largest one that was the most conservative. They also happen to be for paper ballots. Disband them, just kicked them out. They went to one county, kicked out the leadership, and kicked out somebody who was assisting from another county, kicked them out of the party, kicked out one of our lawyers who was in the Republican committee for 20 years, banned her for 20 years, can't join the party anymore. So this Arkansas cabal is really flexing their muscle, and then it culminated with the AG. And some people say, well, maybe there was a technical violation the colonel did or things. If you look in a vacuum, you could maybe see something, but the overall picture shows what has happened to everybody in this movement coming from the top down pressure in Arkansas. So it's in a vacuum, the Conrad thing might not seem so bad. The reason it's gained national attention is because they've seen it not in a vacuum, because we've highlighted what's happened to Searcy County. We've highlighted what's been going on in the fight against the paper ballots here. And so it boiled over. It became a national story because people didn't get the story in a vacuum, and they're siding with Colonel Reynolds because they know him as a person. He's been a public face for a while, and they know what he's like, and they also know the fight that has been happening from the top down here.
Right.
So, but you have the affidavits, but in the affidavits,
Yeah, Steve,
they
do you want
say,
to put those affidavits up for us?
And really quickly, while he's pulling that up, just so you and our audience know, Arizona ranks number 24th, and it's tied with Idaho, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island for that ranking.
yeah,
So,
I think they would, because the mail out ballots, the ID is lax there, and those are some of the things that they grade on. And Arkansas actually does a pretty good job of not having mass mail out, and they do have an ID law, but the ID law is lax. You can come in with a mugshot from your jail, and they'll count it as an ID.
Yeah.
Okay, so here they are. If there's addresses and stuff on here, Steve, just go really quickly.
It's below
through
the
them.
statement, I think.
Okay.
Below where it says Independence County. So
Okay,
if
go
you
ahead
scroll
and scroll
fast,
down, Steve.
if you
right
scroll
here,
fast,
if
you'll
you would.
skip it under the cash bond stuff.
Okay, right here. Stop right here. So it says 7-1-103 violation of election law. Right. Go ahead and
Yep.
keep scrolling now, Steve.
Now, right here, you're going to see the known address.
going,
So
go
keep
quick.
scrolling. Yep,
There we go.
Go there. You go behind this. This is the investigator. And then now look, hold on, scroll up just a little bit. Now part C1 has their used as a subdivision of electioneering. So
Right.
it's in there, right there. So that's part of it. So,
And what I
down
found
is our
really
statements are
interesting
below.
here is they clearly define electioneering in that piece of legislation, don't they, Brian? I mean,
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and so I mean it's very clear. You either have to be handing out, distributing, or offering to distribute literature, soliciting signatures on a petition, displaying a candidate's name, likeness, or logo, displaying a ballot measures number. And so, a lot of these things relate to actual overt acts or overt statements that are made in support or against a particular candidate or a ballot measure.
That's right.
Is that correct?
And in these election laws, what they are is when you're talking to people who are going in to vote and you're showing them a sign or something, maybe you're holding up a sign that says go Biden, or vote for this, or doing things like that. That's what electioneering is defined as. Exit polling is not defined as electioneering. It's actually a First Amendment protected speech in many different outcomes in court cases. But Conrad's actually not charged with electioneering. He's charged with being too close to a door on election day while exit polling. So his charge is not even really electioneering. But the guy who was hired to do exit polling, he is charged with electioneering. So they got him for electioneering, but Conrad pretty much for loitering. While none of them were asking people going in what they were doing, they were coming out. They were saying, "Did you vote for paper ballots? Yes or no?" And then people would thumbs up and thumbs down, and that was what they were accused of doing. And then they said somebody came out and asked them to move. And if you guys know Conrad, he's not really a confrontational type person, and so it doesn't take much for him to obey any request or things of that sort, just to not cause trouble. And so, you can take that with what you will, but the full story is not even in any of the affidavits on what happened. So
Well,
they leave it out because they know it would sound ridiculous that they were trying to prosecute it.
all right. Well, question for you: When did this exactly happen? What
November
year was
5th,
it?
2024.
February 5th,
No,
2024.
November.
November
November
5th,
5th.
2024.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that was the presidential election, correct?
Right. Almost a
Yeah.
year ago.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so
So they charged him in October.
right, they almost a year.
Hmm.
And so
But here's the
Sarah
significance of
Huckabee Sanders was appointed was elected in 2024. Is that correct?
no, she was 2022.
Was she 2022? When did she
Yeah, so
appoint the AG?
he's elected also. That was 2022. He's elected.
22
He was
as well?
running for governor, and they kind of forced him to back out, but promised him a Trump endorsement to
Right.
get out of the governor's race and run for AG. So he got a Trump endorsement to run for AG to get out of Sarah's way, so she didn't have to spend the money to beat him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so they're
Well, why would
2022s.
why would they go through all that trouble given Arkansas is such a Republican state?
Well, they just wanted a clean candidate slate for the governor to not
Right.
have to spend her money in the primary to
Right.
beat two staples of Arkansas politics. And so
Right.
they cleared the slate for her so she didn't
Mhm.
have to really have a primary, and they didn't have to try to spend all of her money and blow it in the
Right.
primary. Because you win
Well,
the
with
general. The general's
Yeah,
easy.
so
She's going to win that.
was the issue of paper ballots versus electronic voting machines on the ballot?
Not when she was. No.
Well, no, I mean in
Oh,
2024.
in 2024, that was the exit poll was asking, did
Right.
you vote for a measure for paper ballots or not? And it was 63%. They voted to go to hand marked paper ballot. The county chose.
It's my understanding it was announced in advance that there was going to be exit polling. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, we were. Colonel Reynolds was telling people ahead of time we're going to be exit polling. The
Mhm.
reason it was out there is because you have voting machines tabulating. Do you want to get rid of voting machines? And so if
Right.
they knew scrutiny was going to come down on it, he wanted to let them know we're going to be exit polling. And so everyone was told ahead of time there's going to be exit polling. It was, talked about on the radio shows and in Conrad Post and things of that sort. And people were out with like exit poller lanyards or something like that. I wasn't there actually that day. I was with Searcy County while they were doing their hand marked, hand counted paper ballot election. But
Right.
so what I do know is it was told ahead of time there's going to be exit polling. We wanted scrutiny
Mhm.
on it so they couldn't feel like they could rig the machines to cheat the outcome because
Right.
everyone would know it was cheated.
Mhm.
And did it pass?
Oh yeah, 63% chose hand marked, hand counted paper ballots. That's
There you go.
Republicans, Democrats,
Congratulations.
Independents. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
eh, So we have a primary election coming up in March, and they have to do it
Mhm.
hand marked, hand counted. And
So what
the
is going
voters
on
chose-
now with the arrest? How did that all
So-
transpire that a year later they've decided now to arrest him?
There are two things. One is there's a statute of limitations of 1 year. So on November
Uh-huh.
4th, the statute of limitations would have been up if they wanted to do
That's a
anything.
1-year
But
statute.
also, yes, correct. And so also in November, about the 5th or 6th, there's filing for new candidates. If you want to run for office, we're filing in November because our primary is in March. So to get on the ballot, you have to do that in November. And so if they were worried Conrad might run maybe for a Congress or Secretary of State or some seat like that, they were hoping to taint his name most likely. But also this penalty of a Class A misdemeanor, if we're found guilty, is you can never run for office again in your life in the state of Arkansas. So it
Oh,
bans
wow.
you from running forever. So
Is
that's
that,
why,
sorry to interrupt, but is that for any Class A misdemeanor, or is that
yes,
just
uh,
election related
I
misdemeanors?
think it's all Class A misdemeanors. You're not allowed to work for the state or run for office.
Seems pretty
And
extreme
Yeah.
for a
Wow.
misdemeanor.
for
Yeah.
life.
Oh,
And so again, if Conrad's name wasn't attached to it, the AG wouldn't spend $100 something thousand on a special prosecutor, special investigators spending. I guess apparently they've been investigating since February. So investigating this, then to go through with charges and do all of this, they wouldn't do it if it weren't for Conrad. Everybody sees it, and the attorney general is taking flack on it. And now he's trying to lie. He went on a radio station and lied, said people mentioning exit polling or electioneering are doing a red herring. He said it's a red herring. They're just totally not on topic. It's like your own press release mentioned electioneering and exit polling. The
right.
affidavits mention electioneering and exit polling. Your Facebook post mentions they were exit polling. So it's trying to tell people that they're chasing a red herring because they are saying electioneering and exit polling. He's lying. He is just straight lying
Should
to
we
the
play
people of
Yeah.
that?
Arkansas.
Well, hold on. We have the Facebook post, don't we?
We do.
Let's pull up
Yes.
number 2, Steve.
Yeah, pull up 2. And while he's pulling that up, it's interesting. Do you know when the last time somebody in the state of Arkansas was charged under this violation?
Yeah, never.
Okay,
Oh,
because I can tell you in Arizona, I've been doing poll watching since 2016, and we found people actually violating electioneering laws in Arizona. And when you report it, they just say, "We need you to move, or we're going to call the police." And
That's
it's that
right.
much. I've never seen anybody actually charged with a crime for stepping inside in Arizona at 75-foot line, right?
Yeah, we have
So
100 feet, and nobody's ever been charged with it. And just what's today? Monday. On Friday, they had training for election workers, and this is the training by the State Board of Election Commissioners, which apparently they said referred to charges about Conrad. Their
wow,
training told the poll workers, they said, what do you do if somebody comes in and you're wearing Trump shirt and they want to vote, and they walk through it? And they're like, if they start getting rowdy, won't leave, you call the police, you file complaints and that. They said, if you can hurry up and get them to vote and there's not a lot of people, vote them, get them out and wipe your hands and be done with it. Then somebody said, well, what happens if somebody brings all their campaign paraphernalia, signs, and they're standing by the door and they're waving, vote for my candidate, vote for my candidate? What's the process? Do we call the cops? Do we turn them in? Do we, get criminal charges? They said, no, you ask them to move back. If they move back, you're done with it. That was the
yeah.
training
right,
on Friday.
right.
So
Well, there you go.
again,
I hope somebody recorded that, and I hope Conrad's defense attorney is going to make note of that. Steve, can you go ahead and pull up that Facebook post for us real quick?
Okay, Attorney General Tim Griffin. Huh.
and if you look at the second paragraph, it talks about electioneering. If you look at the third paragraph, it
Yeah.
talks about exit polling.
Yep. It specifically says electioneering in the building or within 100 feet of the primary exterior entrance. I think it's interesting. They charge one with electioneering for conducting polling, while they charge under, I believe, the other one, I believe it's under subsection 24, which simply states a person shall not enter or remain in an area within 100 feet of the primary exterior entrance to a building where voting is taking place, except for a person entering or leaving a building where voting is taking place for lawful purposes. So I find it kind of humorous that if these two individuals are working together conducting this poll, how they charge one under a different statute than the other, right? And
Yeah,
it's basically loitering,
yeah. I
as you
think
said before.
there's a difference in the one. The other guy, I think, had a lanyard that said exit polling, and
Uh-huh.
Conrad didn't, and that's why they put the
Right.
thing on. The difference on is because it the other guy's lanyard is what they were leaning on. And
Right.
but there were other people sitting in under it because it had been raining all morning. So people just sitting by the door for hours, apparently,
Mhm.
and none of them got this charge brought on that Conrad had about
Right.
sitting too close to the door. So I mean, it is what it is. The people on the affidavits, two of them, were publicly in the newspaper before the election talking about why people should not vote for hand-marked paper ballot. And
Mhm.
then they're the ones that filed the complaint on Conrad. Everybody sees this for what it is. If
Well,
you know
it's
they're going,
interesting you said everybody sees that for what it is, because I saw the mass amount of support. I mean, obviously, we support Colonel Reynolds and we've put it out on social media. We've shared it in our networks. But even the news media there in Arkansas was showing mass numbers of turnout. You had a pretty good turnout on the day that Colonel Reynolds turned himself in on this warrant, right?
yeah, it's early in the morning. It's 2.5 hours away from where we live, and people showed up, and we had a press conference after Colonel Reynolds went in. You could tell the county sheriff's department and the officials up there, they wanted nothing to do with this. It was forced into their lap by the attorney general, and
Mhm.
they kind of shunned the people from Little Rock and like embraced everyone else like, hey, we're not your enemy and we're not fighting against you, kind of a thing. They were really super professional, super nice, and the judge processed it quickly. The state was telling them they needed professional bail bondsmen. Not going to let them out, and the judge is like, "No, you guys are free, go." And
That's
so they
that's
didn't have to.
good.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
like common
and to
sense.
think that an honorable man can be excluded from public service for the rest of his life for a simple charge of loitering is
Right.
absolutely ludicrous.
It
But
It
it
is.
yeah,
yeah,
definitely needs
And
some laws revisited there. You know, you said that the attorney general went out and stated that this isn't about electioneering at all, and I think we have that audio.
yeah,
And before
this
we
is
wrap this up, I'd love to play this for them. Do you
yeah.
have any
He was
details about where this audio came from?
Yes, he was on the Dave Ellswick show, which is on 101.1 The Answer in Little Rock. He went on Friday morning on the Dave Ellswick show, and Dave is a friend of ours, and he also is a friend of the AG. So the AG wanted to go on to talk about another topic, and he said, "You're going to have to address the Conrad situation if you're coming on my show." So he let him have a little bit to address it, and then the Attorney General, you guys can hear it, and then I'll break it down after about my problems with what he said.
All right,
yeah.
let's do it. Go ahead, Steve. It's the audio I sent you. It would be I added it late, so hopefully you have it. Okay, he's going to get that audio ready.
All right.
Um,
And so I'll tell
and
you ahead of time.
yeah, go ahead while
Like
he's getting that ready.
he says for one, he deflects that it wasn't his decision. Like it's not his fault. He says it was thrown into my office from the State Board of Election Commissioners. It went to my investigators. It went to my prosecutors. It's like I had nothing to do with it. And so, well, who runs the office of the Attorney General?
Right.
It's the Attorney General. So you
Uh-huh.
have discretion on what cases to go after. And they used their discretion to go after a misdemeanor because Conrad Reynolds' name is on it, and he's the
Right.
face of paper ballots in Arkansas, and everyone knows that. He also does the false equivalency, saying it's a red herring when he himself, the red herring, is the real red herring because he's not wanting to answer the tough questions. And then at the end of it, he's like making a plea, like, "You guys know me. I'm the same man. You know, you gotta like." So he's trying to
Yeah.
say, "Don't turn on me. Like, I'm nice. I'm your friend. Remember?" Which has nothing to do with the
Yeah,
argument of why you're
that's the
going after a
part
good
that
guy.
stood out the most to me, honestly, when I listened to it. Is at the end, it was quite interesting where he pulled the you know me, the same man of integrity you elected. You know me, and it just felt so desperate.
Let's start
I
Yeah,
off
he's
think.
with
begging.
the 800-pound
Yeah,
gorilla.
Well, let's hear
Here
it.
it is.
Steve's ready.
Wants
yeah.
you to
You
talk
ready?
about,
Okay,
and
let's
that's,
listen.
what's going on with Colonel Conrad Reynolds. I know you can't litigate the case on the air, so I won't ask you to, but I will ask you to explain what's going on.
Sure. Well, that case is a case that we did not seek, we did not ask for. It's a case that was referred to my office. Excuse me for that. Referred to my office by the State Board of Election Commissioners and went directly the way any other case would to my career prosecutors, career investigators. It would have been no different if the name was John Smith or Susie Johnson. And, I think the affidavits, which are public, you could take a look at those. I think you've seen those. They tell you about all I can say about the case. I will tell you this definitively, 99% of what I have seen or what people have said to me about this case is false.
Okay.
I mean, it's just completely. Most of the people who have reached out to me had no idea the details that are in the affidavit. And one thing I can say definitively, most of what I saw
Definitively
in the public discussion was about electioneering and whether it was an exit poll and whether an exit poll was this or that. Won't get into all that, but this case doesn't involve, the charges don't involve electioneering. So that was a red herring. That's like you asking me, what's better, hamburger or a chicken sandwich? And I start talking about mangoes. I mean, it had nothing to do with the charges. So I really can't say more than that. But look, I'm not new to your show. I'm not new to Arkansans. I have served for a long time, and people have gotten to know me. And I've always been fair, and I'm the same guy. And that's all I can say.
Okay.
That's
all right.
funny.
So can you tell?
Yeah. Yeah, so if you take him at his word, then he has zero what we call prosecutorial discretion, which is ludicrous. All prosecutors have some modicum of discretion whether or not to charge people with crimes, and so that in and of itself is a falsehood. But to simply state that this case has nothing to do with electioneering, when we just showed an affidavit that's sworn out that expressly states electioneering. It cites the electioneering statute, and it uses the specific verbiage electioneering when his own Facebook post discusses the fact that this is about electioneering, right? And so
exit polling.
Yeah, that just. My God, the people of Arkansas elected this man based on his integrity and honesty. They should take a second hard look based on these statements.
That's right. And he had seemed to have in the past been a man who did mostly the right thing. But now it's coming out that not only is he doing stuff like this to Conrad Reynolds, there's a full-on ethics investigation going on, because he is paying a state legislator named David Ray. I call him Rico Ray. He's paying him $10,000 a month as a campaign worker. This legislator is one of the people who are in charge of policing the AG's office and giving and removing power and tried to get control of what the AG gets paid. This legislator, David Ray, has been apparently, according to these ethics violations, getting this money. But also, he has a PAC called the Ray PAC, and money's moving in, and then it's going out in distributions, it seems, around times of votes, and the money is coming, again, from the AG, it looks like. So, again, I hold up the shirt, not just to make fun of, let's see, get this going. Not
Tim
just
Griffin
to make fun of
equals
Tim
Letitia
Griffin.
James. I like that.
But Letitia James went and found a obscure way of trying to charge the president, and something nobody's ever been charged before. Nobody was ever a victim of anything. Nobody said, hey, we have a problem here. Took that, while themselves seem to have been doing criminal activities with finance and money. So this AG kicked a hornet's nest, and he's going to get stung. He's already starting to feel it. You can hear it in his voice. He's shaky. He was choking. I said that's because the devil got his tongue, because he's ready to lie. And so
you know what I thought it was? He
What's that?
spends way too much time in those smoky, cigar-filled back rooms with all of the
Probably.
political elite trying to control and manipulate the system. Right.
He was probably there with
That's
the
what I
puppet
got when he
master.
was coughing up, hacking a lung. Right.
And
So
you know,
I don't know.
he's a National Guard colonel. He should have integrity that officers of the military have. And
Mhm.
you know, I spend a lot of time with Conrad Reynolds, like 8-9 hours a day we spend together. In Wisconsin, what was it, like 18 hours a day we were together.
Yeah.
We're always together, either here in Arkansas or in DC. Conrad Reynolds is a hero, literally, because he saved a woman who was choking in a restaurant when nobody else would step up, did the Heimlich, saved her life. We were driving, a car flipped over. It was smoking on the side, nobody stopped. While I'm calling 911, he runs, he kicks in the back window of the SUV, climbs through the smoking car, pulls out the lady, gets her out of there when nobody else was stopping. This is
Mhm.
the type of guy they're going after, who's already spent all this time in the military, who has to constantly pass polygraphs. He's a man of integrity who doesn't do anything without the advice of his lawyers or everything, because he wants to make sure everything's kosher. He doesn't try to bend rules. He doesn't try to skirt anything. He wants to do it by the book because he respects the law. And that's the kind of guy they're going after. And everybody around the country needs to see what's happening under Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Letitia James, Tim Griffin, and even our Secretary of State, Cole Jester, who was handpicked by Sarah, appointed by Sarah, who has been going after the Searcy County people. This is all around lawfare and the weight of the government of this oligarchy using their pressure to try to maintain status quo. And
Right.
the absolute power has corrupted absolutely. And I'm actually going to lead an effort in Arkansas for the Republican primary to vote out every incumbent who is in the state legislature or in the
Well,
statewide offices or Congress,
that,
because none of
that's
them
a
are
good
standing up
idea.
for the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and
None of them are
that
standing
needs
up
to
for the
be
right
done
thing.
in a lot of places. And
But I'm going to tell you the problem in
I'm
Arkansas.
even an advocate when you get these people in positions of power. You've supported the opposition party, right? So I'm
It's
bipartisan in that regard. When you look at Republicans, when Republicans have all power balled up in their hands,
Mhm.
they get just as corrupt as Democrats do.
And
This
this
is an
happened fast in
issue that
Arkansas.
spans what a lot of people refer to as, the uniparty. And
Mhm.
so we see a host of this that we've talked a lot about.
Mhm.
You see people talk about, oh, things are happening in a nonpartisan way, right? Like here in Arizona, you get people like former recorder Richer says, oh, it's all nonpartisan
Mhm.
because he claims to be a Republican, but he's working with, far leftist organizations to undermine, the elections in the state of Arizona. And so they claim it's partisan.
Right.
But what is partisanship? It's either, in today's day and age, it's either pro-Trump or anti-Trump. And so
Mhm.
in Arkansas, I'm not sure what the total dynamics are. I know a lot of people out there currently in power were endorsed by Trump, whether correctly or incorrectly, because Trump doesn't make every decision himself. But it sounds like what you all ought to do is run Colonel Reynolds for the Attorney General's office.
And I'm going to tell you the problems in Arkansas, and
Yeah.
this is going to blow your mind. How
Yeah.
much money do you think it costs to run for governor just to get on the ballot as a Republican?
Probably well over $1 million.
Well, no. Just ballot, just to get on the ballot. Like in Arizona, you guys get signatures to get on the ballot.
Right.
In
You
Arkansas,
can't buy in.
in Arkansas, you have to buy in, and it
Oh,
is
wow.
$40,000 to
Wow.
get your name on the ballot as a Republican for governor.
Huh.
$40,000 to run for Senate. $30,000 to run for Congress. They're trying to price out competition and be an incumbent protection program in Arkansas. So the people who already have the campaign funds because they've held an office then can move those funds around to constantly file for office. And whoever wins the primary, the party donates that money back to the winner of the primary. So it's an incumbent protection program. So even if Conrad wanted to run, it's tens of thousands of dollars just to get your name on the ballot as a Republican.
So
Wow.
that's just a Republican Party thing, is that, or is that by
That's right.
statute?
Nope.
That's
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 just
the
the Republican
Republican
parties.
Party in Arkansas saying if you want to run for office, you have to pay.
Wow.
You
Well,
have to pay and pay big.
how about he run as an independent?
In Arkansas, it's a very uneducated voter populace. If
Yeah.
you run as not a, if you don't run as a Republican, you're not going to win. It's a 70-30 outcome. Independents get no votes. Democrats
Right.
get, close to 30, but it's a 70-30 split. And you would have to spend probably $50 million to educate voters with mailers, calls, commercials. You'd have to go so far overboard to even make a dent that you couldn't do it. You have to run as a Republican if you want to win. And to do that,
Right.
you have to pay that big price to the Republican Party.
Wow. I'm like blown away
But it's
that
like
you have to pay like a tariff to the political party to have your name
It's a
put on the
poll
ballot.
tax.
It feels like extortion.
It is. It's a
Yeah.
poll tax. It's illegal,
Yeah.
we think. And, I think we need someone like Harmeet Dillon or someone to come in and say, you know what, this isn't right. You can't block ballot access
right.
because everybody knows the Republican primary is the real election in Arkansas. You win
Mhm.
that primary, you're going to win in November. I mean, it's not close. It's not close to being purple. It's one of those all in. That's why they can act like a cabal because they know their seats are safe. And if it's not the machines cheating, they price people out so you don't have competition on the ballot, and then
Right.
you're never going to lose in November.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's why they're not
interesting. It's
scared
my
of losing power.
understanding that running for Congress is very similar in that, if you want to be supported by the Republican Party, the RNC, Republican National Committee,
Mhm.
that you have to buy in a substantial amount of money in order to get that support. So I know we need to, people talk about money in politics, but that's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, and imagine trying to run and you say, "Hey, I want to raise money. You be a
Mhm.
donor to me." They're like, "Well, we don't want to give to you until we see you're on the ballot."
Right.
So now you're in a catch-22.
Right.
To get on the ballot, you need $30,000. You need a new car,
Mhm.
the price of a new car to get on the ballot. But nobody wants to donate because you're not on the ballot yet.
Yeah.
And so,
Unbelievable. Well, you learn something new every day about how they
Yeah.
get away with what they get away with.
Yeah.
and
you
this is
know?
Arkansas, which is under Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Republicans, where they should be for the people, but we are being ruled. We're not being represented. We have an oligarchy that's just desperate to hold on to the power. We had,
Mhm.
I don't know if I know, Shelby, you're involved in the state politics and the parties. We had a convention, state convention. They voted to close the primary, so Democrats can no longer vote in our primary. Right now, it's open. Anyone can vote in the Republican primary. They voted
Oh,
to
wow.
close it. They voted to make paper ballots the platform for the Arkansas Republicans to have their elections on. So the people of the committees voted for it. Then Sarah Huckabee's handpicked chairman, Joseph Wood, in this rules committee said, "We don't care what they voted. We're not going to count it." And they just ignored the whole convention of the Arkansas Republican Party because they didn't want to close the primaries and promote paper ballots. So they just ignored what was elected by the people at the convention. This Republican Party is absolute power hungry here in Arkansas, and it's led
Yeah.
by this guy named Kim Hammer, who's running for Secretary of State. He passed legislation to punish counties that went to paper ballots. Then there's the guy David Ray, who uses his committee to call down people like the Searcy County election commissioners or other people to berate them in public, get out negative headlines, and push hard against them. And then you have the AG now charging people for crimes that nobody's ever been charged for before, that don't deserve to be charged for, just for the status quo politics.
Well, let me ask you a question. What machines are used in Arkansas?
It's all ES&S.
Yes.
The first,
Does anybody affiliated with ES&S contribute to these folks? $40,000 buy-in.
the problem is you don't know because
Question.
ES&S is owned by a private equity group. You don't know who's investing into the private equity group. They won't
Right.
release their donors, so they
Right.
could be given to these guys, and you wouldn't know. But
Right.
in Arkansas, we go in. It's a touch screen poll book, e-poll
Uh-huh.
book. All of our election data is held in Omaha, Nebraska. They have our e-poll book. Then after that, they print out a piece of paper with a barcode on top that goes into an ES&S touchscreen. That prints out, and then it goes into an ES&S tabulator, ES&S reporting night. ES&S owns our entire election. They own it all, from the check-in to the tabulator to the reporting, before it goes to clarity. So the tabulating. So it's a captured election here in Arkansas. McCarthy
God
Group
bless you
owns
guys.
ES&S.
You got a lot of fight ahead of you, but I know if anybody can do it, you and Conrad can. So
We're
our
relentless.
thoughts and prayers are with you, and we're
We're
here
not
if
gonna
you
stop.
need us. Do
Just-
you
Yeah.
have any
Just
final
remember,
thoughts or questions for Will?
Well, I just want to point out to people in Arkansas that are supporting these machines. Did you hear about the recent airport hack?
No.
There,
I missed it.
recently, how about you? Have you heard about the recent
No, I
airport
didn't.
hack?
No.
Somebody hacked 4 or 5 airports, right? This is, talk about critical infrastructure.
Mhm.
You're talking about our airports, right?
Right.
And Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency is supposed to be on the ball with our airports, because that is public safety writ large, right? But somebody was able to hack 4 or 5 of our large public airports, and they put out an anti-Trump, pro-Palestine message over the airport's PA system, right?
Wow.
And so if people can literally hack into our critical infrastructure that's guarded by supposedly these national security agencies like the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and put out these messages and interfere with the normal operation of business at our airports, then surely they can hack your voting machine.
It's not too difficult. We've talked to the people who wrote the code. They left it open
Right.
to be hacked. But when something that's supposed to be impossible to hack, go back to Iran. Iran had a nuclear program that no internet, totally unplugged, no kind of communications inside. People aren't allowed to bring in phones or anything of that sort. The US government was able to destroy their computer system because somebody had used a thumb drive that on an official computer, but the US had gotten into that official computer to get something into a thumb drive that they took into to update the I forget what it's called, that does the uranium in the power plant, and it set them back 15 years. They
Yeah.
were totally unplugged. So every day of an election workers are putting thumb drives in and out of our machines. So
Right.
all it takes is one thumb drive, and it can just spread the entire system. You never know what was in there, and then it
Well-
can be on a timer that it leaves and
Yeah.
replaces itself.
Well, not only that, but the e-poll books are out there in the cloud, right?
They're online. Yeah.
They might be in a virtual private network, but nevertheless, they're still in the cloud. And we
Yes.
see cloud hacks happening all the time.
All the time.
Microsoft
Today,
in
AWS went
Arizona,
down.
the e-poll books went down, both in Maricopa County and Pima County, because of a big hack. And so,
Yep, and that's why we're calling for paper poll books. We're
Yeah.
calling for
Yeah.
the return to a paper poll book that you sign next to your name, and that signature is an
Right.
affidavit that this is
Right.
your only time voting. You're eligible to vote. You're a U.S. citizen, and this penalty is a election felony if you
Right.
lie on it. And you sign next to your name, and you go vote in a paper poll book, and you have it in small precincts. And I think we're going to be
Right.
able to make elections secure again next year. I hope we get it done in time for the primaries. I know they really, really, really want it done in by November 2026. And as you can see by the hiring of Kurt Olson and Heather Honey, there is a real push for real election security. And the last thing I want to say is I hope you guys pray hard for Kurt and Heather. They need the prayers because they're in the middle of the worst place to be fighting for election security, and they're going to need the prayers of strength and having God's armor on them as we know their hearts. We know they want the right thing. We know what the president wants, but they're going to be met by blockers in every corner they turn. So, I mean, really, really, really pray for them. Add them to your prayer list because those two need it.
We do it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, and I think that's an important thing to point out. Not only should we be praying for them, but we need to recognize that there are still many, many obstacles in place and within the network of the administration. And they're there to do the right thing for the president, but they are going to meet a lot of obstacles, and we have to be patient and work
That's
with
right.
them to persevere through all of this. So,
It might not be on our timeline, what we're hoping for, what we're wishing for, but it's on God's timeline and God's will be done.
Mhm.
amen. Well, thank you so much. I know it's been a long, long day for you, so thanks for joining
It's
us.
been long.
Yeah,
This is
thank
our
you.
third show today. Or fourth.
Yeah.
Will you
we
be blessed?
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you much. We'll talk
Peace.
soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And so that's actually a pretty good segue to what we were going to talk about
Yeah.
next, right? And
Absolutely.
that I believe is the movement to the complete monopolization of elections in the United States,
Right.
right? And so how'd that happen?
Well, so very recently,
Uh-huh.
there was a big announcement, and a lot of people believe that it's a good thing, even
Mhm.
people kind of in the election sphere, and that is Liberty Vote
Right.
bought out Dominion.
Right.
Now, why does that become a problem? Because you still have ES&S, Hardin or Civics, right?
Right.
So that in itself is not a monopoly. But if we remember, I think it was about 1998,
Mhm.
Smartmatic owned a massive number of different companies related to elections.
Right.
The federal government actually charged them under the monopoly law
Uh-huh.
and forced them to liquidate part of
Right.
their companies. And that's where we started getting all of these spring off companies
Mhm.
and why people say they were all built on the same technology.
Right.
Well, the owner of Liberty Vote,
Mhm.
the man who bought Dominion, is the founder of No Inc.
Oh,
Yeah,
those are the people that own our
e-poll books.
e-poll books.
Right. And No Inc. and B Pro
Uh-huh.
are also owned by they merged.
Yeah.
So B Pro was one of the biggest
Uh-huh.
e-poll book
Right.
platforms out there. And then No Inc. and B Pro merged together. They still use different names, but they're one corporation.
Right.
And now that same corporation owns Dominion voting systems.
Well, let me ask you this. What voting machines does Arizona use or Maricopa County?
Well, in Maricopa County, we use Dominion,
Right. Which would now be Liberty Vote.
which would turn to Liberty Vote should the Board of Supervisors in Maricopa County choose to continue with their contracts.
Right.
And then the other counties, other than Yavapai, uses ES&S.
Right.
So, and that's the problem that Will was talking about, is we're going to have a system where the voter checks in and they get their ballot. Their ballot's generated through a Runback tabulator, right? They vote
Right.
their ballot, and then it goes into a Dominion tabulator in Maricopa County. You're going to have the same people telling you who can vote,
Right.
telling you the results of the vote.
Right.
And this is an issue.
Yeah, it's a huge issue, I think. E-poll books I've talked about ad nauseum as being a huge issue because you can change them up to the moment of the election, right?
Right.
And so in the old days, it used to be when we precinct voted, they would print the poll book
Right.
to give to the voting center as it was fixed on the last day after the last day to register to vote, right?
Right. And according to the state
Right.
of Arizona, that cutoff is, I believe, 29 days. It might be
Right.
30 days prior to the election, but I think it's 29. And what's happening now is a lot of these e-poll books, they can go in and actually change their address and factors. And this is all allowed
Right.
by statute all the way up to election day.
Right.
So
Right.
somebody can go into a poll to vote and say, oh, I forgot to update my voter registration, but I
Right.
moved last week.
Right.
And they can actually update and make changes right there on the spot.
Yeah.
So there's no locking mechanism. There's no
Yeah.
protective mechanism to prevent changes. Because if you can do that,
Mm-hmm.
then you can change anything within that election system
Right.
up until close of polls.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem. And so as we move to these sort of centralized monopolistic election systems, that really pushes the people more out of the process, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're looking at a scenario where they say it's more expensive to do hand count because it would
Right.
require so many people. But the
Right.
reality is it's actually much more affordable,
Uh-huh.
but we have many more people.
Right.
And that's the point. And I think that's really what they don't want is
Mhm.
access to the elections by the people.
No, I would agree 100%.
I mean, when you're dealing with this, you've got 4 or 5 guys, 4 or 5 technicians
Mhm.
that are handling everything
Right.
on the election systems,
Right.
right? So you've got, I think in Maricopa County, they claim only 3 people have
Mhm.
badge access to the main server
Right.
where all the results are calculated, all the reports are
Uh-huh.
ran, everything's aggregated.
Mhm.
And so it only takes a few people to go
Yeah.
in there and do it. And if you were doing it by hand, it would take 10 times that many. And you would have citizens doing it, not
Right.
paid actors by corporations.
Right. Well, and the whole problem I think they have with citizens doing it is you're doing it typically at the precinct level. And so it's really hard to change the outcome of an election when you're getting precinct returns when the precinct is done counting.
Right.
And then you're aggregating them because that leaves really no leeway to inject ballots into the system that are favorable one way or the other. Right.
Well, and that's the problem, right?
Right.
When you reconcile at a poll center
Mhm.
and you have 150 people sign a poll book,
Right.
then you should have 150 ballots.
Right.
So to inject anything would be impossible,
Uh-huh.
right? And so they need a system designed where people can't prove
Mhm.
when there's shenanigans. If
Right.
you know how many people checked in, because right now we know how many people check
Right.
in. But what they do is they do these massive drops of mail-in ballots
Yeah. That's
into all of the vote
Yeah.
centers across the county.
Uh-huh.
And they could come from anywhere in the county.
Right.
So there's no way to reconcile it. The other thing is I can't look at a precinct.
Uh-huh.
So when you have people from 900 precincts voting at one vote center,
Mhm.
I can't reconcile that more people than live in that precinct voted or
Right.
find the anomalies, right?
Right.
But if I'm dealing with a neighborhood where there's 500 residents
Uh-huh.
and 700 people vote out of it, I'll notice that.
Oh, no
so,
doubt.
So these are all ways that they can bury that data
Right.
and prevent people like us
Right.
from really drilling down to the finite
Yeah.
details of each
Right.
precinct.
And what I'd really caution people about is saying, "Oh, this is a good thing because Liberty Vote, it's being advertised as a Republican operative, bought Dominion,
Right.
A Republican operative." And this gets right back to the whole what I mentioned earlier. The whole, is it nonpartisan or is it partisan,
Mm-hmm.
right? Partisanship in the United States today is not Democrat versus Republican. It's
Right.
Trump versus anti-Trump. That's where the
Or
line is
I'd
drawn.
like to say it's even deeper than that.
Mhm.
It's American versus anti-American.
Yeah. And
You
so, it's or you could even break it down as wants to keep the system that's been built during this period of the Cold War versus wants fundamental systemic change
Right.
to make the United States government more efficient, right? And these
Right.
are the battle lines that have been drawn in the United States. And so if you look at, what happened in Arizona with Dominion, right? Dominion was bought by
You mean
Runbeck, I'm sorry.
Run bet. Yeah.
By a reported Republican state legislator's family, right?
Yeah.
Has there been any change? Has there been any more transparency at Runbeck since that purchase?
No.
Absolutely none. Nada.
No.
Zero. Now, if you were a family that bought Runbeck and you truly supported election integrity, you would have released all of your 2020 loading dock video, right?
Oh, absolutely. Especially because I wasn't part of the process in 2020.
Right.
So if something wrong happened or
Uh-huh.
wrongdoing, and I
Right.
was an honest, integrous person,
Right.
I would want to expose that
Right.
and say, hey, look, good thing we took over,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
they're not.
They're
and
not.
And I don't think we're going to see that with Dominion either. I do not believe that you're going to see mass reform with Liberty Votes with the new purchasers.
I would agree.
No more transparency.
Right.
I wonder if the site keys are going to be, or the passcodes rather, are going to still be owned by the proprietary software company. You know, vendor-controlled passwords are illegal in the state of Arizona. But yet we know for a fact by their own admission that they're using vendor-controlled passwords.
Right.
Are these things that Liberty Vote is going to take seriously and address and make changes?
Right.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that this is lipstick on a pig.
Lipstick on a really big fat pig.
Yes, a not very attractive pig.
Not a very attractive pig. No. But you know, the whole thing about vendor using passwords. You know, oh God, why change it? The vendor gave me a password, right? I just use their password,
Right.
And so now you're giving a third party access to your system when you do that, and maybe that's the point behind using the same password.
And I believe it is the point, right? And I believe that these systems are built so incredibly complex in some ways that the election workers themselves, those in charge of the elections, don't understand it enough to control it. And they're perfectly happy with the idea that, okay, we're a vendor, we're going to sell you the software. And not only that, it comes with a few free men. And they're going to come do everything for you. And all you've got to do is just make sure the people do what they're supposed to do, right? And they let them in. So it's not even a sideways way that these vendors have access to our elections. We're willfully giving it away.
Right.
And a lot of it is honestly convenience. People have historically done this in all aspects of our life, right? It's a reason why we continue to use technology that we know is bad for us.
Right.
Because it's hard to make changes. And
incredibly hard.
But I agree. And look, Republican, not Republican, does it matter? I think we are at a point in time, Brian, where people need to understand that having an R next to your name or a D next to your name doesn't mean they share the same values and principles you do.
100%. I mean, I can pretty, soundly say that I don't share the same principles with the governor of Minnesota.
Right.
100% for sure. But at the same time, there are a lot of issues on which I would, not break bread with Sarah Huckabee Sanders over.
Right.
Right. And so, just the letter or the number, the letter before your name really has no bearing in today's day and age, because so many people that support the system as it's become are both Democrat and Republican. It's not an issue of that makes it nonpartisan. It's an issue that partisanship in the United States of America is changing in terms of what it means to be an R&D.
Well, and let me ask you this question. Steve, can you put up number 6? And while you're putting it up, I want to talk about this. So this is an article that was put out, and we were talking about partisan purchases of elections. Okay. So No Inc. Oh, that's number 6. Sorry, Steve. Number 6. Oh, is it number 6? Okay. No Inc. is an election technology company based in St. Louis, Missouri, best known for its products, PullPrint and PullPad, right? So No Inc. was the one with all the controversies. And right now they have e-poll books for 1,700 districts in America. Okay. 35 states and Washington, D.C. and in Canada. The founder of that is a known Republican operative, Scott Linedecker. Steve, go ahead and pull it down, and then I think put up number.
When you think this will come up, and
number 4,
the court proceedings will start.
Oh, sorry. So what I'm getting at, what I'm trying to get at, is if a big article broke saying Democrat operative buys voting systems, the Democrats would be outraged everywhere, right? Or, I'm sorry, the Republicans.
Right.
Why is it that the Democrats are not outraged that one Republican now controls a huge chunk of U.S. election infrastructure, quote unquote. Former GOP operative Scott Leidendecker just bought Dominion voting systems used in 27 states. Okay.
Giving him ownership of voting systems used in 27 states.
Correct. So my point is, why are the Democrats not losing their mind? Why is it only election integrity people, predominantly Republicans, that are saying, I don't care if you're a Republican, there is something wrong with this.
Yeah.
If there was not a sense of security among the Democrat operatives, they would be losing their ever-loving mind right now, and that's not happening.
It's not happening.
I mean, people need to use common sense here and say, this isn't safe.
No,
because Pelosi isn't screaming about it. Schumer isn't screaming about it.
This is the uniparty. This is Gallegos. What's that spaceman spiff dude?
Oh, Mark Kelly.
Mark Kelly's not screaming about
Steve
it.
says Ruben Gallego, Mark Kelly.
Yeah, and so the problem is this is what is typically referred to as the uniparty. You have the uniparty versus those people who want to systemically change the United States back into a constitutional republic. And so they're not screaming about it because it enhances their ability to maintain control over our political system by controlling elections.
Well, and I just want to point that out because you can go ahead and take it down now, Steve, but people have to question why.
Right.
Because I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you should not want any operatives controlling the election equipment.
And not only
they're willing to scream about Heather Honey working in CISA, right? She's just working in CISA.
Right.
They're willing to scream and holler about Kurt Olson doing an investigation, but yet they don't care that a Republican operative owns the software and proprietary passwords for the very systems that give us our election results
and equipment.
That should scare the hell out of people.
In 27 states, right?
Right.
A monopoly in 27 states. That's scary.
Right. And I just want to know, where's the Democrat outrage?
Yeah. You're not going to find it.
No.
That's a big clue to everybody looking at whether or not they should support returning to precinct-based voting and hand counting versus reliance on these, technological beasts that can be hacked. I mean, you see hacks all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Of major systems where billions of dollars is spent every year to protect. Right. How is it you're spending billions of dollars to protect our airports? Somebody can hack 5 airports and interfere with the normal operations of business.
But don't worry, Brian. I mean, there's no way they can hack into this basic, simple piece of equipment that doesn't even interface with the internet.
Right.
It's ridiculous, and I think their hypocrisy is shining through. But I just have to say this, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody. If you are looking at the situation and saying, because it's no longer Dominion and it's now lipstick on a pig, liberty vote. Oh, that's freedom. And it's owned by a Republican. And you're not asking questions and saying, why isn't Nancy Pelosi pissed? Why aren't the Democrats screaming from the rooftops about this? You need to reevaluate what you know about what's going on with our elections, because there's a lot of work to do. And we have very important elections coming up in 26. And I'm praying that the work that our organization has done, that the work that other organizations, Colonel and Will, have done, that the work of Kurt Olson and Heather Honey, that all of that comes to fruition, and that President Trump realizes his, what I believe is his dream of honest, free, fair, and secure elections comes to fruition, because if not, we're in real trouble. And so I believe that we're heading in the right direction, and more people are waking up. And with that, I'll let you have your final thoughts. And
go ahead.
Yeah, Steve's going to bring up a web page before Brian wraps.
Okay. One of our viewers sent this to me, and I thought it was interesting. Let's
Now,
see
vote
here.
beat. That's a leftist rag, isn't it?
Oh,
It
yeah.
is.
Jen Fiefeld.
This is what
She's
they're
awesome.
reporting. The sale appears to be more of a rebranding than a revolution. Dominion is operating under the same name under the name of its new owner called Liberty Vote. State election officials say they have now been told no staff changes, contract terminations, or product overhauls are expected. Once we took a step back and took a deep breath, we realized not much was changing.
And so, you wouldn't expect it to change because the whole issue is not about ensuring integrity in our elections as much as it is about what our government has been doing to us for decades, and that is giving us a warm, cushy feeling, right?
Yeah.
If we call it liberty, something or other, then people will think it's about freedom, and it's been taken over by people who are going to give us freedom and liberty, right? And so nothing's going to change.
Right.
Absolutely nothing's going to change except for the name.
See, even the leftists know. Even Jen Fiefeld knows,
Right.
Steve, that this is nothing more than a rebranding to try and con a bunch of dumb right-wing Republican
Right.
conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, I doubt we're going to hear anything from Adrian Fontes about this. He's not
Yeah,
going to
probably
throw
not.
any fits or
It's just
complain.
lipstick
or
on a
anything.
pig.
Oh, are they
It's-
going to even be doing any new LNA testing, new certification? Are they going to retest software? No, this is
No.
all a publicity
No, this was a
scam.
blip in the news. It's business as usual, on with the status quo.
Right.
Just like
vote.
Runback.
Liberty vote means you're free, right? you get to decide. You're calling the shots.
Yeah.
I do have a sliver of hope, but not much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, as my closing arguments, I guess what I would again reiterate is that, if you're on X, if you're on some other platform, go on Blue Sky. More X people need to go on Blue Sky and blow these people's minds, right? Because over there, it's just a bunch of groupthink. They're over there saying the same thing, and you get all of these AI bots that are running around all over social media, putting out what its version of the truth is. And its version of the truth is really, sort of a compounding of articles that people are putting out. Right. And so
That's
if the
right.
conservatives are not out there occupying this space, right, if we're not out there pushing articles, if we're not out there defending election integrity and defending those doing the business of election integrity, then all that's going to, I mean, the old adage, right, crap in, crap out. And the liberals know this. And that's why, I thought it was fascinating that Elon Musk, I think he had an epiphany, crap in, crap out. Because he asked Grok a question and it came back with something, the shooter relating to Charlie Kirk.
Uh-huh.
Conservative family, everything said conservative, right? And he just asked the simple question, WTF?
Right.
WTF? What's going on here?
Right.
And so,
Because we all know that's been debunked.
right,
But there were so many articles about it
Right.
saying that he was conservative.
right,
And then when the truth came out,
uh-huh,
nobody wrote about it.
right. And it's crap in, crap out.
Yes.
So if you're a conservative and you want to get the truth out there, if you want to get AI to recognize the truth, you need to get out there and start pushing articles, start hammering social media with the truth, because
Right.
we have to protect those individuals who have been brought to the fore to ensure that our elections are actually run with integrity, right?
Yes.
More integrity than simply changing the name of a company that has a monopolistic advantage.
Lipstick on a pig.
Yeah. And, Steve, that was a great reminder that when even the left is telling you nothing's going to change, relax. I'm telling you, I was shocked to see so many people that I thought
Mhm.
were more up to speed in the election realm
Right.
saying, oh, this is wonderful news.
Wonderful
Um,
news.
Yeah, wonderful
Like
news.
I said, just like Runback, nothing has changed but the ownership.
I
And with
think
that,
a lot
I'm
of
gonna say
people.
peace.
I think a lot of people are just they're battle fatigued, And so they're looking for an out. And they're like, oh, great, a Republican owns it now. We can all go back to our normal lives and stop
Yeah.
worrying about this. But
Well, and that's what got us in this mess to begin with, right? But that's true. All right. Well, hey, awesome news. Trump appointment, Kurt Olson. We're going to see some new evidence coming out, and we are going to get results. I believe in it. We just have to keep telling the truth and don't get battle fatigued and stay in the fight and have a good night. Peace.
Peace.